Have you ever wished you could return to childhood? The days when sunlight seemed warmer, when your biggest worry was choosing the next game to play, when the world felt gentle, safe, and full of wonder. For many of us, childhood was a sanctuary, a time without fear, a time before the world revealed its cruelty. But not every child receives such a gift. Some children never learn what innocence feels like. Some never get to laugh freely or sleep peacefully. Some are born into a world that should have protected them, but instead betrays them in the most unthinkable ways. Today's story is about one such child. Her name was Khung, a 4-year-old girl whose fate would shake an entire nation to its core. A child whose suffering remained hidden until it was too late. A case that left seasoned investigators horrified, shaken, and speechless. This is her story. On July 20th, 2020, a woman walked into a police station in Singapore. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Her granddaughter, 4-year-old Khung, was missing. For months, she had been trying to reach Megan's mother, Khloe Fu, but every call, every message, every attempt was met with silence. Something wasn't right. Something had been wrong for a long time. Earlier that year, between June 29th and July 3rd, she had received a strange letter claiming Megan had been hospitalized. No explanation, no details, no medical reports, just a vague message and then complete silence. And then came the dreams. Night after night, visions of Megan crying, calling out, suffering. They felt like warnings, like pleas. She couldn't ignore them anymore. She filed a missing persons report. Around the same time, Megan's biological father, Khung Yunan, also reported her missing. Despite his troubled past, he felt it in his gut. His daughter was in danger. Investigators immediately began searching, and what they found would unravel one of the most horrifying crimes in Singapore's modern history. To understand what happened to Megan, we need to step back. She was born on October 4th, 2015, the only child of Simon Khung, also known as Simon Boy, a small local influencer Khloe Fu, a young mother who appeared cheerful online, but whose life was unraveling behind closed doors. They married on May 12, 2015, but by 2017, the marriage had collapsed. Simon descended into drug addiction, arrested multiple times between 2015 and 2019. Khloe moved in with her mother and brought Megan with her. It should have been a safe arrangement. It could have protected Megan. But then came January 2019. Khloe met Wong Xiang, a freelance car mechanic. Their relationship escalated quickly, and she moved in with him, cutting herself off from her own family. Megan stayed with her grandmother at first, but Khloe wanted her daughter back. The grandmother refused. She sensed danger. She didn't trust Wong. She didn't trust Khloe's sudden obsession with independence, but Khloe didn't care. By late 2019, she had pulled Megan from preschool and taken her into the apartment she shared with Wong. That was when Megan's real nightmare began. Teachers at Megan's preschool were the first to notice the bruises. On March 19, 2019, staff spotted marks on her face, arms, and feet. Khloe lied immediately. She fell off her bicycle, but the bruises kept appearing. Khloe admitted she caned Megan for wetting the bed or dirtying the furniture, behaviors completely normal for a child her age. Teachers warned her, issued final notices, and threatened to report her to child protective authorities. Khloe panicked. She withdrew Megan from school. From that day on, Megan disappeared from the public eye. Because now, behind the closed doors of a rented condo in Paya Lebar, no one could see what Wong and Khloe were doing to her, except for one person, Noel Chua, Wong's friend, who frequently stayed over. Chua didn't stop the abuse. She recorded it every single time. The abuse began with caning. It escalated to slapping, punching, whipping. Soon, it became sadistic. On November 9th, 2019, one of the worst documented incidents occurred. Megan forgot to tell her mother she had soiled her diaper. For most mothers, that would be normal. For Khloe, it was unforgivable. She ripped the dirty diaper off and forced it over Megan's head as the child sobbed. When Megan tried to remove it, Khloe yanked her by the hair and shoved it back over her eyes and nose. On another day, Megan simply played with Khloe's makeup, an innocent act of childhood curiosity. Wong's punishment? He scrawled red lines all over her face with a marker and paraded her outside the condo, forcing her to wave at strangers while Chua filmed. Then came starvation, then cold showers, then the trash bin punishment, making Megan dig through garbage for food, then the head shaving. Her tiny body was covered in scabs, bruises, cuts, and open wounds. Teachers had been right. The grandmother had been right, but it was too late. No one could see her anymore. By January 2020, Megan was emaciated, barely recognizable, barely alive. Wong and Khloe upgraded their weapons, now using batons. They starved her for days at a time to stop her from soiling herself. One night, Megan cried softly, fatigued, starving, disoriented. Her mucus accidentally fell onto Wong. That was all it took. Khloe slapped her and then smeared her own mucus onto Megan's face. On another day, Megan suffered heat stroke so severe she convulsed. Instead of taking her to the hospital, Wong put ice on her head. Then he dislocated her jaw during a beating. Khloe looked up instructions online and forced Wong to reset her jaw at home while Megan screamed. This was torture, not discipline. This was agony, not parenting. Megan had eaten nothing all day. That night, Wong came home angry over a trivial issue, where Megan relieved herself. Megan was too weak to stand, too thin to hold her head up, too broken to defend herself. Wong punched her repeatedly, then delivered the fatal blow, a full-force punch to her stomach, slamming her into the wall. Megan collapsed. Her breathing changed. Her body trembled. Something inside her had ruptured. Khloe panicked. Wong dismissed it. Chua told them to take her to a hospital. They refused. Instead, they got high on meth and ignored her. Hours passed, then silence. By morning, Megan was dead. What happened next is disturbing beyond imagination. Instead of calling for help, Wong, Khloe, and Chua spent 2 days plotting how to dispose of Megan's body. First, they moved her around the apartment, letting her corpse slowly decompose. Then, Wong wrapped her in a blanket, sealed her in cling wrap, stuffed her into a plastic storage box, and filled it with cement. He kept the air conditioning running to hide the smell, but he wanted her gone, completely gone. So he researched incineration. On May 8, 2020, nearly 3 months after killing her, Wong transported the cement-filled box to an industrial workshop. At 6:10 a.m., he lit a homemade burn barrel and used a leaf blower to intensify the flames. For 4 hours, Megan's small body burned. When only ashes remained, he swept them up, placed them into a plastic bag, and drove to East Coast Park. There, he stood at the shoreline and scattered her ashes into the sea. No funeral, no goodbye, no grave, no trace. Just a child erased. For months, no one knew Megan was gone, until the grandmother filed the missing persons report. Police launched a search. Within days, they located Wong, Khloe, and Chua. Their phones were seized. Inside, detectives found dozens of videos documenting Megan's torture. Even hardened investigators wept. Some ran out of the room. Some vomited. Some couldn't continue watching. By July 24, 2020, Wong and Khloe were arrested for murder. Chua was arrested for assisting in the disposal of the body and for filming the abuse. Drugs, meth paraphernalia, and even illegal weapons were found in the apartment. The case quickly became one of the most shocking crimes Singapore had ever seen. Wong, then 33, and Khloe, 24, were charged with murder, an offense carrying the mandatory death penalty in Singapore. Chua faced up to 7 years for disposing of the body. But the legal system had to analyze every piece of evidence. This dragged on for years. Finally, on February 28, 2025, both Wong and Khloe pleaded guilty to reduced charges, avoiding execution. To many, no punishment could ever represent the magnitude of what Megan suffered. Singapore was outraged, heartbroken, disgusted. Thousands cried reading the details of the case. Social media erupted in fury. Child welfare advocates demanded sweeping reforms. Megan's grandmother was devastated. She had raised Megan with love. She had sensed danger. She had begged to see her. But now, there was nothing left to bury. Megan was in the sea. Her father, Simon Khung, was equally shattered. He blamed himself for not being there. His drug addiction had cost him precious years with Megan. But her death changed him permanently. He got clean. He rebuilt his life. He joined anti-drug advocacy programs. He became a public ambassador, warning young people about addiction. His message was simple: don't become the kind of person who hurt my daughter. What happened to Megan was not just a crime. It was a failure, by her parents, by the adults around her, and by a system unable to detect her disappearance for months. A child suffered in silence. A child died in agony. A child was burned and scattered into the sea. And no one noticed until it was too late. Megan should have had a childhood. She should have had safety. She should have had love. Instead, she became a symbol. A reminder of how fragile children are, how vulnerable, how desperately they depend on the adults around them. Her story forces us to ask, how many warning signs were ignored? How many opportunities were missed? And how can we prevent another child from slipping through the cracks? Today, Singapore remembers Megan not just as a victim, but as a call to action. Her father speaks at schools. Her grandmother still cries for her. Thousands share her story online. Millions pray that her suffering was not in vain. The verdicts may be delivered. The trials may be over. The criminals may be behind bars. But Megan's voice, silenced at 4 years old, continues to echo. And that voice says, never again. Never another Megan.